Well, I am super excited to be talking to you today. Ifetayo White is here with me, and I've known Ifetayo for a couple years. We
Yes.
connected a few years ago, and you describe yourself as a full spectrum Reiki doula,
Yes.
which is a beautiful term that encompasses a lot. So I want to start there. What
Yeah.
is a full spectrum Reiki doula?
Yeah. I love that you said it encompasses a lot. Because just this moment I had a realization, Patrick, when you said that. We can break it down to full spectrum, Reiki, and doula. All three of those
Mhm.
are very powerful words. And so full spectrum means in the doula world, I'm going to say relative to doula, it means prenatal, birth, postpartum, and even death.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the full spectrum of life.
Yeah.
Okay. So doulas can be present and show up as doulas at any of those, I call them sacred transitions.
Mm,
All of
yeah.
those to me represent sacred transitions.
Right.
So, and then Reiki, of course, is the practice of Reiki,
Yeah.
which a lot of people are familiar with as a beautiful hands-on
Mhm.
healing tool that originated from Japan.
Yes.
So, yes. So I have had the blessing to bring all of those together in one as a practice of my own and a service that I offer
Yeah.
to anyone who's interested in the training and also in securing the support of a doula at any one of those sacred transitions.
So I know that you do a lot of teaching now and you're
Yeah.
preparing people to do this
Yes.
work. I have an understanding, however limited it might be, of what a doula does. I know a little bit more about end of life doula than birth doula work. And then I have my own understanding of Reiki, which
Yeah.
is, a lot of people understand as a hands-on healing, but you're blending these modalities, these techniques at these sacred transitions. What encompasses the work of a birth doula or somebody who's
Yes.
working prenatal, natal, and then postpartum, as you said? What's involved there?
Yeah, I love that. And I love the way that you are weaving together what I have already woven together inside of myself, offer out. And okay. So one of the things that I do want to interject right here
Yeah,
is
please.
that for me, why I have had this integration as an offering is because it became clear to me that the Reiki practice, in addition to being a centering practice, it
Mhm.
is a practice of being present.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that I teach Reiki is as a practice of being present, of being mindful, of growing that with ourselves as we show up in these sacred transitions. Okay, as a
Mhm.
doula, as a Reiki doula in sacred transitions, what we would bring in addition to our beautiful Reiki hands and energy, and in addition to the skills that we have learned in our regular Reiki training, we come as Reiki doulas to these sacred transitions, having been taught and having practiced presence with all of these other skills that we bring. The presence for me is paramount that distinguishes us from all other doulas,
Okay.
okay, and who are hired by a family or loved ones or friends to be present at a birth or with a pregnant mom or after she's given birth or when a baby has transitioned, when a baby has died,
Mm.
really to be with their family or at the end of life with an adult person or another
Yeah.
child. So if you can feel, which I encourage everyone to experience the words that I'm sharing, not just take them in, but if you can sort of feel into the word presence and what that energy brings into the space
Mhm.
where you're sitting,
Yeah.
if you are the mate in a birthing environment, if you're the partner of someone who's pregnant or if you're a family member with someone who's transitioning, if there is a person present who is the doula, who has been taught or trained Reiki,
Mhm.
and also through Ifetayo's program, which would include a big emphasis on the presence. So
Yes.
that person comes into your space, comes into your room, they bring with them an energy that influences the
Yes.
environment, the energy in the room.
Right.
And that's what I had in mind. This beautiful instruction came to me.
Beautiful. Starting with the topic of presence, which my experience with the kind of work that you're describing
Yes,
has been in the end of care, palliative care
yes,
context. And
yes,
their presence was really important at the end of life. The difference is that I was in a hospital setting where I would make brief visits, patients or family members,
yes.
and I had to very gently enter that space, right? And it was me being present, but
Mhm.
in no way having an agenda, not being able to dictate, really being responsive and understanding
Yes,
what the needs were. But that I wasn't necessarily invited. I was part of a volunteer program.
yes,
These practitioners come into a space where people are being invited in, right? So
yes,
when those people come into the space, and whether they're assisting with prenatal or these sacred transitions coming into the world, what is a parent? What is the birth mother
mhm,
wanting that she would not otherwise have in that setting? There's a reason that they come to
yes,
somebody like a Reiki
yes,
doula, right? There's something
yes,
different about that. So could you talk just a little bit about kind of the mindset of the person, the mother, or and we
yes.
talk end of life as well, of like a family or somebody who's transitioning,
Yes.
why they reach out and want to invite somebody with this kind of presence?
Yes. Again, I love your questions. And and again, I invite you and anyone else who is present for this broadcast to really feel and experience the words and when I share them
Mhm.
as a mother who is a first time or a many time mom. There is a certain level of anxiety that
Mm,
comes with moving into parenthood. Every time there's a different something that comes up for the mom, particularly. And so when a doula who has had Reiki training through this particular program, which has an emphasis on presence in
mhm.
addition to skills, that doula will have a higher sense of the energy in the space, the whole family, because as Reiki people, our intuition just grows. I mean, that's just
Mhm.
a part of what happens.
Right.
So you show up with a sense of awareness,
Yeah.
and you particularly have a deep sense of awareness of the mother. And that person who's receiving that level of presence and listening, the nervous system will
Mhm.
calm itself down.
Right.
Not even having hands on,
Yeah.
just the presence of the energy that person carries. So that mother will receive that benefit right away,
Yeah.
um, knowing that, yes, this person has really connected with me. This person is really listening. This person has a sense of me, unlike some other people who are experiencing me in one
Mhm.
dimension and not really feeling that I'm really feeling anxious, even though I'm looking happy, or what, all of the things. So I know that um, comfort in
Yeah.
prenatal visits, getting to know the mother, getting to know the family. The same would happen in a birth in the hospital, even in a home birth. That same experience of this person coming in, this presence
Yeah.
being with me. And I know that I can feel them. I can feel them with me because we're talking about energy that's palpable,
Yeah.
talking about energy that's
Yeah.
palpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I've known you for a couple years, and every time I've connected with you, your energy is amazing. It's beautiful. You're
Thank
very present. So I can imagine that just having somebody like you in the room
Yes.
would bring this.
Yeah.
Now, do Reiki doulas, do they use some of the hands-on techniques or some of the other Reiki specific techniques in these settings? Is that available to the mother or the person transitioning at the end
Yes.
of life? And if so, when does that come into play? Because that feels like it could be very powerful.
Very powerful, very supportive, Patrick.
Yeah.
Because we do know what touch means.
Mm-hmm.
So touch in and of itself is exquisite and healing.
Yeah.
So yes, a Reiki doula would have absolutely the way that I have worked and I teach is that we have an agreement with the family that we're going to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the agreement would, particularly if you have a Reiki doula, it would include possibly a certain number of Reiki sessions in the prenatal time, and then in the birth time, then as Reiki is needed, it will be offered to both the mother and the partner, because partners are having their own experience at birth. So we offer hands-on for a second, for a minute, for 5 minutes, whatever's needed for the partner also. So that's always a part of the agreement for a Reiki doula with the family.
Yeah.
Also, if postpartum and death experiences would be a little different in that, again, you will have a contract about in postpartum, you could share Reiki just intuitively. You want to touch, you feel like it would be helpful, or you can have an agreement where there will be one or more whole Reiki sessions offered. And at transition, sacred transition times, then it's a little more spontaneous and flowing with Reiki being shared, because you want to honor the family or friend, whoever is around.
Right.
And particularly if the person in transition had been a part of end of life agreement, they would have a say whether they want someone to share Reiki with them with their hands on or not. Typically at an end of life Reiki doula experience, everybody wants to be very clear about when hands on would be shared.
Yeah.
And honoring. Yes.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is the real sensitivity that flows from this presence of just the deep awareness of needs, and really honoring that the Reiki doula comes in with a real sense of humility about what's needed.
Yes.
They're not there with an agenda, but they're coming in really loving support.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Now, I'm curious about the kind of ways in which hospitals or any sort of entity that's often heavily regulated, how much is this something that people are looking at, worrying about qualifications? I know that stuff like similarly has happened like in massage therapy or things in different places where people are aware of it because it's very powerful. I'm just curious whether this is something that comes up in the context of doing Reiki doula work.
It would from state to state.
Yeah.
Right now, Reiki is not regulated in any state. Okay. There, massage therapy is. There are certain restrictions, as we know, that have been placed on certain hands-on modalities and other modalities that are not necessarily hands-on, where there's certain certifications, licensing. Reiki has not yet been licensed in any state. And I sit on the board of Reiki Unified, which is a body that has been watching every state as legislation has come up for licensing of Reiki and lumping Reiki in with, and Qigong and other practices with massage. So I'm very closely attuned to the movement of this legislation state by state. So at the moment, no, there's no regulatory bodies that govern who can practice Reiki.
Right.
And as you mentioned, Patrick, the hospitals that have tight restrictions, we as doulas always must honor the fact that we are entering someone else's domain, someone else's home.
Right.
And we have to live by the rules and regulations of that place.
Yes,
So
exactly.
if there are restrictions on any of the ways that we practice, then we have to abide by that. Now, we always want to know ahead of time, and actually our families and would be the informants
Right.
of such practices, because it would be their choice to birth at a certain place
Yeah.
or to die at a certain place. And they would know much more often, much more about those places than we might.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of experience with the hospital in my area, so I know what's there, what to
Right.
expect.
Yeah.
What to expect, but always honoring when I go there or go into any facility that I am entering someone else's home, I'm
Mm.
entering someone else's domain. So I come with a lot of presence
Mhm.
of that honoring, and also there to be, and particularly with the birth, an advocate as a doula is, and for the family. And so holding that space also with a lot of graciousness
Mhm.
but a lot of integrity on my commitment to the family. So
Right.
it requires maturity in how you handle those places that we walk into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that those sorts of settings are becoming more and more receptive and open to this work and kind of seeing the
Yeah.
tangible benefits?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely, Patrick. Over the years, without getting into my long story, but yeah, I've been a practicing doula since 2007, and I've been in a lot of hospital rooms. And I have witnessed and have witnessed with my own eyes and experienced
mhm.
the evolution in this particular hospital that is the main hospital where we live. It has been a beautiful transformation from when I began as a doula, a lot of suspicion, a lot of not knowing if I'm there to take over everything. So you
Right.
have to just be graciously continue your work,
Right.
keep coming. And as we know, there are some hospitals now who have staff doulas and staff Reiki people.
Mm.
So maybe not the combo. I haven't heard of a Reiki doula on staff with that particular job title,
Right.
but I do know there are hospitals that do have Reiki folks on staff on call
Yes.
and doulas on calls.
The hospital where I did some end of life care
Mhm.
volunteering as a doula, I know
Yes,
also had some Reiki people on staff. So it's
yes,
wonderful to see that they're doing this. And like you, as you said, I didn't see the combination. So it's
right.
wonderful. You're at the cutting edge of this.
Yeah,
And I know that in addition to the teaching and training that you're doing, you're working on a book. You're doing an edited volume right now, right?
yes, I
Yes,
am.
and you are gathering Reiki voices, people who practice Reiki, who might otherwise not be known or have had a voice
Yeah.
or associated with Reiki. So I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that project.
Thank you, Patrick. This broadcast will be my first public announcement.
Oh,
Yeah.
how
Uh,
exciting. I got the
yeah.
scoop. I got the scoop.
The scoop. You came in at the right time for the scoop. I'm excited about that. That's so true. Um, and yes, I as a Reiki master teacher have been since the 90s and have been aware of Reiki since the 80s when my friends were becoming Reiki
Mm,
masters in a beautiful community in Washington, D.C. that was mostly African American, like 99%. And so I was always aware of Reiki practitioners and a diverse world of Reiki
yes.
practitioners and Reiki masters. So here we are, fast forward to the 2020s and decade, and I still had heard from other Reiki masters, and particularly some well-known ones, that they didn't know any other Reiki practitioners or teachers of color. And that was really surprising to me. In the United States, particularly on the coast, where you would usually have more diverse communities and populations, and particularly in the healing world and in the spiritual world. So I was nudged on by one of my good friends in New York, who is a very powerful Reiki master teacher and has her own podcast. She shared with me that she would love to hear the stories of a diverse group of Reiki people. And that was all I needed to hear. Because I said, I got the folks, people. And so it has been a joy. There are 21 voices in my book, which is called Reiki Hearts and Souls, Many Stories, One Great Light. And the stories are incredible and magnificent. And my heart intention is that these stories and these voices vibrate into the worldwide Reiki community. In America, we have more of an opportunity to live in communities that have all kinds of folks, or we, in the greater community around us, might be all kinds of folks. In the big world of Reiki, particularly in like Europe, there's not that opportunity. Even in Japan, it's still kind of the same people looking the same and of the same culture. So the beauty of the community that has grown around me, or I've grown up in, is that there are so many folks. And I have heard many times that folks have not known any Black male Reiki masters. And so in my book, we have Black male Reiki masters. We have my friend Zippy, who is a lesbian rabbi who lives in our community, who's 80 years old. And so we're all speaking about our Reiki journey. So everyone in this book will talk about their Reiki stories, but also blend it into their bigger lives. We have the Southern voices in our book because it's like there's some real down home Southern folks that you would never think were Reiki masters. So I had to do that. I'm like, no, we have to have these voices in this book. And and so just a beautiful range. We have Turney, my friend who's an attorney Reiki master, who is also a minister in DC. Her beautiful story. I love stories. I love each one of our individual journeys, and I get to feel it more. I get to feel you, Patrick, and feel everyone through your story as you share. So that was my intention, and it is my intention.
That sounds amazing. And I think that it's really important because there can be these sorts of very narrow beliefs about who practices Reiki in settings. And what you're doing with your full spectrum approach is not only like where Reiki shows up in the world, but who's doing the work. And I think that's fantastic because Reiki's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And it looks like everyone. It looks like everyone. And
well, it sounds like this is a major contribution to not only Reiki, but to spirituality generally, just the sense of like the diversity of voices and who practices it, breaking some of the stereotypical images of who might do this work.
Absolutely. One of my contributors is a friend of mine, Renee. He lives in DC. He is a gay Latino Catholic. And we've had long conversations about some conflicts he's had with being Catholic and Reiki. I mean, this was years ago, but his voice is so beautiful in the book also, and his journey and how he integrated all of himself to be who he is right now. So powerful and beautiful.
Beautiful. Is there a publication date, or is it still in process?
We're just a little ways off, but I just dreamed to have this book published before the end of the year. That's my dream. So as
That's
sooner the better.
Yeah.
But we'll just see. I don't feel in a rush. I know that it's spirit guided and there's always divine timing. This book has been in the works for 2 years, tell you the truth already. Just as I started inviting people to share stories. So there was
Yeah.
just like 5 stories. And so now we have the 21 that I'm just happy that we have that cross representation.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you wanted to share about Reiki doula practice as we come to a close?
I just want to share really my gratitude for being invited into this space with you, Patrick, and just sitting and having this conversation. That's my biggest gratitude. That's the biggest thing that I really want to leave. Gratitude is a big practice of mine as well as a big vibration. I just, embody. And I don't know how many words I can say to tell you how grateful I am for you and for inviting me into this space with you.
Oh, well, thank you, Ife.
It's been beautiful. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I love talking with you and I love hearing.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I just love talking with you.
Yeah, I feel the same. Yeah.
I will make sure to keep my eyes for the publication. I'll be making sure I'm aware of that. And thank you for bringing your whole self to the world. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm honored.